Who is not aware of what Playboy means in a terms of brands? If we are talking about brands, this is one of those that is known worldwide. One of the strongest brands in existence. Like whoever sees the symbol of the rabbit, they instantly know what's going on. And obviously, it's been a company that has a very, very rich history with lots of exciting stuff. But of course, the times are changing, right? And the question of maybe kind of this decade is, can Ben Kohn rebuild the empire of Playboy? Let's take a look. This is basically, what I do basically for a living, right? Looking into exciting companies. And just as a disclaimer, I'm not a shareholder of PLBY Group at this moment. I'm just doing this research basically for my own sake. I would, be doing research like this basically on almost a daily basis, looking into interesting companies and just trying to build that mental library. So I have the opportunity to pull the trigger when I feel like I have enough conviction in the stock and when I feel that the valuation makes sense. And of course, let's treat it as I have never seen the company, even though I did some initial research in PLBY. But yeah, let's just dive into it and let's see what Benny and his management team have in mind, because I think they have pretty big appetite. Let's get to it. Yo, 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 hey there, people. Hope you're doing great. My name is Andre. I'm Managing Director for the Financial Fortress network of investors, where we are trying to triangulate the best possible investments for you, your portfolio, trying to become better investors day by day, go above and beyond. And, I just wanted to spend a couple of well, maybe let's see how it goes, but could be up to an hour. But I would just like to do a little bit initial research into the PLBY group, because it's obviously an interesting story. And from what I've seen so far, it seems like the management team has pretty big plans, and I always like big plans. It's I'm a big fan of growth stories, but for me it always comes down to the execution, and that's something you cannot easily discount. But let's take a look. So I would like to catch you a little bit up to speed with what's been basically going on, right? Just again, from my initial research, it's not an investment advice or anything. I'm just random dude on YouTube, helping investors from all around the world. And let's take a look at the financials and price action over the last basically year, right? Because uh, PLBY was a spec story, right? It went public in 2021, I think. Was it? Uh, Most likely, yeah. Um, and obviously, there was this huge run up, almost 4x from their kind of a spec price, right? Because obviously, there was in 2021, there was a huge appetite for this kind of stories, and they were pushed to an insane valuations. And since then, basically since the top, which was around $60 per share, we are now down almost 60%, down to 24.65, which means maybe it could be a good time to buy. Who knows? What's the story, right? Because obviously first we need to verify the qualitative part, but then it always comes down to the valuation, right? It's always the very last part of my process to kind of figure out if the price I'm paying for the company today makes sense given the trajectory of the whole business. So at the moment, it's just a little above 1 billion in the market cap as of recording of this video. Today is the 8th of January 2022, and we are just starting to look for great companies to invest in. So, obviously, just to give you a little bit of an idea, right, about the history. So, uh, Playboy was obviously mostly known as the magazine with an interesting pictures. We all know what we talk about here, and it was run by Hugh Hefner, who was one of those figures greater than life. And from what I've heard about the interview with the current CEO of PLBY Group, the story basically was that kind of Hugh Hefner was very fixated on the printed magazine, right? So there was this whole thing where, um, obviously as they were producing the magazine, the times were changing, and obviously, as a print media, they were not really kind of up to speed, or they couldn't adapt to current time because Hugh Hefner didn't really want it, right? He was just very nostalgic. That's kind of my impression. And actually, the current CEO, Ben Kohn, is trying to basically turn this ship around and mainly leverage the power of the brand. As I kind of mentioned in the introduction, it's like the symbol is just powerful, and it carries so much history and recreate this whole ethos that's around the Playboy group. If you would like to rebuild that from scratch, you would just need so much money to generate all this history, right? They have a huge catalog of all the previous issues of the magazine, of all the photos they have and all the products. So that's obviously something that you cannot discount. And a strong brands, I'm definitely always in favor to invest in companies uh, that are an amazing brands. And I think PLBY is something that definitely caught my eye, especially for that particular reason. uh, but yeah, Ben Kohn, basically, if I can show you a little bit about the management team, because for me that's always alpha and omega, right? The people that are running the show, because if you are investing in the company, you're basically uh, tying your future with those people, right? And I want to be associated with a great management team. So basically, just kind of a briefly history mainly about Ben Kohn. I didn't do that much research on the rest of the team, but Ben Kohn, even though he's CEO of this newly created holding company, PLBY Group, um, he was involved with the whole shebang for a long time, right? Because basically, what happened is that the company was a public company a long time ago, like the Playboy itself. However, they were taken public, and Ben Kohn was the person who actually was working for the company that took Playboy public. Right here, maybe we can find some details about that. Um, yeah, because he was. From 2004 to 2018, Mr. Kohn served as a managing partner at the private equity firm Rizvi Travers, where he led the successful buyouts of major media and entertainment companies, including taking Playboy private in 2011. And then he was serving for some time as an basically on the board of directors, and then as an interim CEO between May 2016 and 2017. So obviously this guy is very much in tune with the whole brand, and it almost my impression is that he's having some very big plans with the brand, right? Because he obviously spent a big amount of time. Obviously, he's not like a founder or anything, which would be even more preferable. Or I always love founder-led companies, but it really seems that like he has skin in the game for this fun. He's been with the company for such a long time, and. You know he was kind of there, right, during uh, the time when Hugh Hefner died. That was relatively recently, right, and that unlocked the possibility to basically revive the brand and rebuild the whole empire, which I think is something Ben is aiming at, to really leverage that brand and make it kind of powerful and make it money printing machine. So let's take a look at the deck they prepared. And this is going to be a quite a old presentation. This is from March 2021, because again, I just want you to kind of bring you up to speed with what has happened and with the overall company, right? So you can kind of decide if it maybe makes sense for you to look a little deeper into it and eventually maybe make it part of your portfolio. But again, for that one needs to do a lot of work to make the educated decision. So let's dive into it. Investor highlight. An iconic global brand, PLBY Group is built upon Playboy, one of the world's largest lifestyle brands with 3 billion of consumer spend, massive reach, and unrivaled global consumer appeal. Whew. Amazing, amazing. Countries where we sell the products 180 countries, 97% global unaided brand awareness, 50 million global social media fans, 100 million US Gen Z spent on Playboy streetwear, right? So, what that tells me, we are having this huge, basically like a license. This is a licensing company, or when it started it was a licensing where it started as a PLBY group, as that new holding company, because there is a huge amount of products that are Playboy branded, right? You can see it here, right? You have definitely lots of clothing, right? Lots of that, and all the other products. In total, it's the 3 billion, right? And it's often not in not in the hands of Playboy, right? They are just licensing for someone else to make the product or cooperate with other brands that will make it, but use the iconic symbol, right? And they are making money of those royalties. That's one of the revenue streams, and it will be one of the points later when I would do some of the valuations, right? Because, and here, just to give you a little bit spoiler of what's kind of coming ahead, right? This will be a huge deal breaker in a sense, right? Because what I found out is that they are getting relatively very thin, basically royalties, right? I think it's somewhere around 2 to 3% for so basically out of every dollar spent of like a Playboy branded products, they are getting just 2 3 cents, which is unheard of in terms of royalties. What companies are usually making, if we are talking like some massive powerful brand, because what would be the usual royalty fee range would be somewhere between 6 to 7. That's what I was able to find, right? So, and now that the PLBY group is basically kind of on top of everything again, there is a possibility to renegotiate all of those deals that are bad deals, like flat out. That was kind of what remained after Hugh Hefner, because again he wasn't really that business savvy, I would say, or he didn't care about the strength of the underlying business. And now we have a possibility to renegotiate all those deals, which in a sense could bump revenue enormously. But again, it's an execution problem, right? Can the management team pull out all these renegotiations? Because obviously, if you are some of those brands, right, and the PLBY is, or Playboy as a brand is very strong in China for some reason. Um, and so you are having some, let's say, just to give it super basic example, you have a company making a t-shirts, right, and they have the Playboy logo on it, and they are paying Playboy just those 3 cents out of every dollar they make. Super cool deal for them. Okay, and now Ben Kohn and the team comes and they will try to negotiate. Okay, can we get 6, 7, 8, or trying to negotiate some number. And of course, how does it make sense for the one making the t-shirts, right? Because they could either have a little lower margin, pay more to the Playboy group for the licensings, or they could lose the whole uh, deal altogether, right? So definitely both sides have a certain amount of leverage, and it's definitely need to have some discussion, and it's definitely going to be a little bit unpleasant discussion. uh, but of course PLBY is definitely in a place of power, right? Because again, and I think they will touch about it a little bit later in the presentation deck, that again, like, the brand is worldwide known. Let's take a deeper look. A growth story with strong predictable revenue. That's it. Almost feels like they were making this presentation for me. I'm always saying I loved growth stories, and the strong predictable revenue, that sounds very good as well. But let's take a look what they have to say, right? Because obviously one of the presentation that's supposed to persuade investors to invest in the company, right? That so you always have to take them with a big grain of salt, and you know, try to verify as much information as possible. So what we are getting if we are investing in PLBY: rapidly growing direct to consumer platform, owner of iconic consumer lifestyle brand Playboy, which drives 3 billion of annual spend with products in over 180 countries. So as we kind of talked, they are definitely trying to position themselves as a lifestyle brand, right? There was obviously kind of the back in the 70s, 80s. There was obviously the whole magazine around which this whole culture evolved, right? And they are trying to revive and revitalize this whole part. And let's see how they can do that. Expanding owned commerce platform today, serving more than 1 million active digital consumers. Okay, good. Unique combination of revenue streams. Direct to consumer revenue driving accelerated revenue growth. Highly profitable and highly predictable global licensing revenue grew 20% year over year in 2020. 17th most licensed brand in the world. Mhm. So again, that's what we kind of talked about, right? They have this, like, licensing. It's a great business model in a sense that you do nothing, you get money, and it's super stable, right? But as I mentioned, the deals weren't that good, and there is a huge possible upside if execution is there. Well positioned organic growth and merger and acquisition strategy. Four defined multi-billion dollar addressable markets, including sexual wellness, style and apparel, gaming and lifestyle, beauty and grooming. Well capitalized with financial flexibility to fuel growth strategy. Over 100 million of NOLs provide tax shield. Well aligned incentives of management team and track record generating significant return for investors. And now we are getting to what kind of PLBY group evolved into over basically since they went public, because obviously they, like, the management team has been executing so far. So what I've seen, like, the last year, I've been following the company for about half a year at the moment. uh, they seem like they have had in the very right place, and they are, you know, over delivering. Definitely, you know, they had some deadlines they were trying to meet, and they definitely exceeded them. I will mainly touch on some of those maybe a little bit later or in one of the later sessions. uh, but if I can, yeah, I will just move to this slide, right? Because I would like to talk about these 10 opportunities. Because basically what the PLBY is, in comparison to the Playboy before, now PLBY is a holding company, and they over to 2021 they acquired some of very exciting businesses. They are kind of all of those are tied together in their whole kind of niche, if we can call it like that, right? As we kind of heard, sexual wellness, style and apparel, gaming and lifestyle, and beauty and grooming, right? So they are basically trying to stamp their Playboy logo on lots of different stuff. either through that licensing, but of course also going into direct to consumer, right? So they had many interesting acquisitions over 2021, and some of those, it definitely makes sense to combine some of those businesses which are in those similar niches, and we will look what the acquisitions were later. So let's get back to the deck. And here we are, obviously trying to paint that growth story. Revenue up 89% year over year to 148 million in fiscal year 20. Right. So, obviously the growth is immense. But of course, again, if you're kind of starting from low numbers, it's not that hard to achieve. And that growth is fueled mainly through the acquisitions, right? So we are acquiring new businesses, which also means we got some proceeds from going public, right? From that SPAC merger that definitely put some good money on the balance sheet. But if I'm not mistaken, and I need to look a little bit into the financials, how are all these mergers and acquisition financed, right? Because my guess would be that they definitely taken some debt on as well, which in this environment might be a little concerning. Depends how big the debt is, considering to the revenue, and if they are able to kind of sustainably service the debt. Because of, yeah, that's something that's a little concerning to me, because obviously if you're investing in some companies that are relatively capital intensive, yeah, let's take a deeper look later. Yeah, with the service activities. So yeah, as I mentioned, some of those acquisitions is the acquisition of Lovers, and I think they will have something about that later. Geographically diversified revenue. Yeah, this was a little bit interesting for some reason. Obviously, PLBY or Playboy as a brand is super strong in China. Obviously, majority is in the US, and only 22% is in other, which of course means that in theory it can grow there. I was a little surprised that maybe it's such a low number. China was definitely surprising for me that for some reason it's very popular there. I would just guess, the most of the popularity would be in the US and Europe, but it seems like actually the Europe and the rest of the world is definitely lacking. But again, as a kind of a brand, we are already so well known, which obviously is amazing. And it seems like that the brand, what is, in my opinion, super crucial is that the brand is seems to be loved by Gen Z and millennial, which as an investor you have to have that little overview of the whole. I'm the big picture guy, right? I'm looking at the overall movements in the society. I'm looking at the big numbers. I'm looking at the revenue. I'm looking at net income. So I always take like a super big strides back and try to look at what's kind of happening and what might transpire in the future. Because now thinking about it, it almost feels like obviously with the Playboy has been here for a long time. Actually, let me maybe Google it, where it even started, right? Mm, because I can what I quickly googled is that the first issue of Playboy was in 1953, so that's 70 years ago, and obviously that's a long time to have a brand, right? The brand that can survive and thrive through such a long time, but of course that also 70 years, that's such a long time in terms of like kind of a generation, because obviously you know there is no doubt that this whole brand is kind of tied with the sexual wellness, right? And it's overall kind of the lifestyle and appearance, and obviously the humanity and their relationship to sexuality was definitely changing over time, right? There were times when it was much more kind of an open topic, whereas I would say over the hmm, you know d- definitely since the since the turn of the millennium, I would say it got little sideline and more tabooed again. uh, and now we are maybe at the point where it's starting to be less taboo again. So it's kind of going in the waves, right? Obviously, the Playboy kind of led the revolution of the first kind of being more open about sex and relationships, and then it kind of fall out of favor um, again with the whole movement and how society basically viewed that topic and its importance. And now I would say that with all the technology we are having and the prosperity, if that prosperity can last, the people are more and more turning their attention towards leisure, um, which might very well play into the whole kind of Cohn's plans, and basically making the brand grand again. And but of course it needs certain repositioning, right? Because obviously what we were seeing with the topic of sexuality in the maybe 60s 70s compared to today, it's a completely different world. So obviously the PLBY group is definitely at this point much more oriented towards in a sense, maybe I would call it body acceptance, body positivity, sexual wellness, and basically, if you actually that PLBY group, if we look into the management team, right, it's super important and exciting to actually see that basically almost half of the board are women. And I've also seen them to mention it in maybe this or some of the other presentation that it's actually women that are driving lots of the sales for PLBY, and it's the brand nowadays has a completely different feeling, right? Because and that's obviously not just something that happened like this overnight. It seems like it was a uh, conscious choice and decision by the management team, and obviously just kind of playing into this whole ethos of the current lifestyle of people. And that's great, right, that they are able to kind of pivot and make the brand relevant to this age. And maybe they will touch upon it more into the presentation. Now I went a little more on like my own opinion and rambling side, but again, that's the overall big picture stuff. Recently introduced women's apparel in China, new streetwear focused apparel launching in India, and for some reason they are also big, big in India, and they are trying to definitely grow there. That's something I should definitely look into it. What kind of transpired that it's such a popular in China, but let's move on. So PLBI Group is integrating operations of recent acquisition to accelerate direct to consumer and sexual wellness growth. So obviously they had these two big acquisition, Lovers and Yandy.com. Yandy brings strong direct-to-consumer sales infrastructure and significant base of sexual wellness consumers, right? So as you can see, right, they acquired these two companies, which are very much, kind of consumer-centric and very much, again, contemporary brands that just fit in the ecosystem. So I think Ben and the team are definitely uh, doing some good moves here. So again, as kind of the overall strategy, I'm definitely intrigued by their plans. Lovers bring superior merchandising, efficient customer acquisition across omni-platform, omni-channel platform. And also, if they are having these acquisition, right, several of them already, they are also able to cross pollinate and basically take the customers from all of them, and ideally sell them a little bit of everything, right? If we just talk about it raw like this, uh, yeah, makes sense, right? And operations are now integrated across PLBY Group, including successful cross-selling initiatives. Yeah. Here you have it, right? As I talked about it, right? If you have someone buying from the lovers, it very well makes sense to push them towards Yandy as well. As long as the products are amazing, I'm satisfied. Growth plans. Okay, let's take a look. Growth strategy. We are focused on three key areas of growth that leverage our unique brand assets, global reach, and consumer base. Building the leading sexual wellness platform, expanding direct sales of style and apparel offerings, accelerating expansion of the pleasure lifestyle. Okay, so well, these are more like kind of the generic words, but how they actually want to achieve that, right? That's maybe my question. The sexual wellness opportunity. PLBI Group is well positioned to capture enormous growth in growing category. Rapidly growing sector, global revenue growing to almost 400 billion in 2024. Forecasted for some reason from the source of some research. I'm almost like in disbelief. Like these numbers seem almost extreme, to be honest. And also the growth, right? It's out of the charts. I would be maybe a little more cautious about some of those statements. And um, I'm often like the management teams, like and now I'm not talking just about the PLBY group, but overall the management team is always pushing like this total addressable market charts into these presentations. But for me that's often kind of misleading, because for most of them, like, they are never going to achieve the full, they are never able to capture the whole time. And for most of them you definitely don't need it, right? With most of the companies you are kind of familiar with, or you're looking into this presentation, you just need them to capture a big part of that total addressable market, right? Because then obviously you are talking about a serviceable addressable market, and so on and so on. So you can definitely kind of chunk it down into different parts. And even if we talk into like the smaller chunk serviceable market and so on, with most of them and the growth stories that they are having, they definitely don't need to capture even the whole serviceable market, or not even a half. There is definitely lots of products being sold, right? And with most of the companies, they just need to wedge themselves um, with and just capture enough percentage, or like the decent chunk, but they don't need to like go overboard in a sense, right? It's yeah. But let's take a second part. Inherent brand affinity. Playboy is immediately perceived as an authority on sex, intimacy, and pleasure. 57% of younger consumers think Playboy should represent sexual wellness. 23% would be more likely to purchase sexual wellness products from Playboy. Um, yeah, I guess, right? I mean, obviously there is this notion. Everybody knows what the Playboy is. If they are a certain authority, that's of course another question. But they can be, right. And I've been obviously following their social media. Um, so I'm definitely trying to kind of perceive how they are communicating with their potential customers. And yeah, I mean, I like what I see in a sense. uh, Mainstream distribution. Physical retail is still a significant destination for consumers. Specialty stores, online, grocery stores, drugstore, and mass market players. Yeah, so here we can see that they are kind of well diversified. If that kind of pleases you as an investor, right? That obviously you can buy the products, and then many different of them, right? They are just trying to slap that Playboy logo on everything. But yeah, diversified. I'm not sure if that's obviously if majority would be online, that's kind of much better for the margins. But of course, you want to see the brand in the real world as well. So I don't necessarily see that as a negative. Um, for me, that's a little bit not that important or see very transparent. It's just important that management kind of reacts adequately from what they will see from kind of a customers going into those stores, and if they are profitable, and if they are not, just slash them. Our sexual wellness focus: private label product development, expand on digital distribution, develop Playmates lingerie franchise, unique merger and acquisition opportunity. So private label product development. So they are kind of, as I mentioned a little bit before, they are trying to have some of the products in their own hands compared to just licensing, which would mean capture a bigger part of that operations. But then again, you are kind of dealing with all the manufacture of the product. So in a sense, the licensing, I don't mind if they would just keep doing licensing. Our style and apparel focus: capture 100% consumer spend, grow Playboy Labs in licensor role with influencers and collaboration partners, expand women's apparel in China, launch Gen Z and millennial focus lines in India. India, okay. Yeah, and that actually brings me right to one of the companies that has relatively chunk of my portfolio, and that did great in 2021. If you haven't seen already, check my video about how I obliterated 2021. And this was one of the companies that helped me, and that was RVLV, Revolve Group, which is in a sense a little bit similar here to PLBY. They are making clothing, and one of the big thing that I loved about Revolve is their marketing, right? So again, I'm a big marketing guy, and what Revolve did great was that the use of micro influencers. They were, you know, they really understood what's kind of the marketing landscape of this particular period. Right now that we are in 2022, or years before, because with RVLV I started the position in 2020, right, when it was kind of depressed during this whole Rona craziness. And now the question is if PLBY is a little bit going this direction, right? Kind of, making that brand seen, using those micro influencers. I might look into that little deeper, because yeah, I just kind of want to see that little rabbit everywhere. Our new business focus: expand art offerings with NFTs, physical prints, and artist collaborations, relicense digital gaming rights, develop own color cosmetic business, launch spirits in Asia and US, and prepare THC based cannabis line for launch upon regulatory approval. Yeah, let's talk about this now, because there is this whole NFT craze, and PLBY just wanted part of it as well. And I'm not against some of those experiments, right? I mean, it's definitely something that brought them some revenue, net income. Let's see. But basically, what they did is that they have these rabbitars. Um, Obviously, I suppose you're familiar with NFTs. If not, pause this video, look on some videos from other people. But basically, they are non-fungible tokens. Uh, you know. That you can basically buy with cryptocurrencies. Um, and they look cute, but of course, with NFTs, it's a wild west at this moment. And of course, there are some that are like super famous and achieve this like cult status. At the moment, it's a Bored Ape Yacht Club, or some of those like crypto punks, which are obviously like at the very top. And then you have these rabbitars, which they have practical purpose, so that's definitely nice, because you are getting some of the perks, um, membership in the club, access to some VIP party, something like that. I'm not sure about like the exact details. In the sense of like the graphical presentation, I think it could be a little better. But of course, that's a little bit, yeah. I mean, with art, it's always tricky. Obviously, as I mentioned, you have this Board AP Art Club, which are kind of the pinnacle of NFTs. Uh, PLBY Group tried to did their own spin, add the whole craziness with the Rabbitars. Mm, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? And I almost feel like it's just kind of a pet project and see how it goes. That would be almost my take. I mean, I definitely think that NFTs is something that's most likely to stay in some form or another. But of course, there are just so many, and obviously, only very small percentage will survive over the next coming years, and most of all those NFT projects will just be forgotten. So it's definitely something that it's a hit or miss with the very low hit ratio. But we are having also these physical prints and artist collaborations, because we have to remember that PLBY has all these like this a humongous archive of all the works. Obviously, lots of pictures. Uh, um, and they can reissue lots of those, and they can basically make NFT out of their whole library almost, which again can kind of bring this new stream of revenue, a new stream of recurring revenue, if they kind of tied it with some kind of a wrestling rights. So that's interesting. Then they are planning to launch spirits in Asia. That's something that's in the pipeline. We've heard some rumors, but yeah, again, they're trying to grow, right? And I loved it. They a little bit shelved their cannabis line at the moment, because the regulatory approval is just taking. One would guess, when basically the Democrats are at the helm at the moment, that it would be easy to push something like that, but for some reason it still seems that it's not really happening, which is a shame. I mean, lots of those cannabis companies at the moment are just like basically ready to go full speed ahead, but they are obviously now only available in some isolated markets. And once that regulatory approval is on the table, it will be a really a huge deal for lots of the companies. Of course, if PLBY can a little bit capitalize on that, because again, it kind of fits with the whole culture. But I think it's clever that they are basically, they it seems like they basically shelved this part at the moment. Social impact. PLBI Group stands for Equality and Free Expression, focused on issues rooted in Playboy's heritage that remain highly relevant for our consumers today. So yeah, that's I a little bit touched upon this, right? Free expression. That's kind of the something that's a little bit getting back after, I would say, like the more prudent. Very beginning of the millennium, we are now becoming more open. I would say that's my impression from the society and whole kind of social media landscape. um, so PLBY is basically trying to position themselves as an advocate for this whole movement, for the legalization of the cannabis, rights for the sex workers. They are trying to fight against censorship, right? Because obviously, if you have some of those social media, let's say Instagram, right, there is definitely lots of censorship happening there, which obviously has its reason. But of course, it's also nice to have a possibility to uh, be able to express yourself in any manner you want, right? Because as in kind of society, as an free individuals, we should be able to uh, you know be able to express ourselves. And I completely agree with the whole uh, PLBY stance and the mission, right? Because as long as you are kind of not hurting anyone, you should be able to do what you want, right? And you are. But of course, now we are getting to a very little bit deeper and in a sense political or kind of value-based discussion. Um, then, if we are talking about some of the other topics, it's definitely about the race, social justice, and marginalized communities, and LGBTQ plus, right? So obviously. you can basically, again, PLBY is really trying to, I would say, position themselves on the side of freedom, whatever it might mean for the individual, which again I definitely support, right? And again, as long as you are not pushing that your agenda on someone else, then it's definitely fine. Hmm. And appendix product portfolio. So, offered at 10,000 points of sales in the US and online through Playboy, Yandy, and Lovers, right? So, when this presentation went out in 21, it was these. So, again, Playboy selling condoms, lubricants, lingerie, endurance vibes, sex toys, CBD based aerosol products, and they are anticipating growing product portfolio, expanding into new categories, including Playmates branded lingerie lines, bedroom accessories, nutraceuticals and wellness, and intimacy subscription. Growth story. Style and apparel product portfolio. Expansive China presence with 2,500 physical stores and 1,000 digital storefronts. Look forward. Yeah. Gaming and lifestyle product portfolio. So they have some gaming partnership, right? And you know, back in the days, Playboy was big into these clubs, obviously. At this moment, I think they are having just a very limited number. I think there is one casino in London that's like a basically Playboy property or Playboy branded. And now that I think of it, I should probably look into it more. Uh, but that's again something that can be expanded upon, and it kind of again into this whole ethos of our society kind of moving very much more towards leisure in these days, right? We are definitely in the best place we have ever been, and the yeah, it's just it's the aim of and kind of the zeitgeist we are now having. um So, as of Q1 2021, the Playboy branded gaming offerings include social and real money casino games, a London based casino, okay, so they still have one in London, and soon to open poker clubs in Texas. Our lifestyle products include home furnishing and art prints, a spirit joint venture, and Indian hospitality. After regaining rights for key gaming styles, we'll be expanding into sports betting, immersive gaming offerings. In broader lifestyle, we are developing own home furnishing and travel product lines and will launch THC based cannabis products as soon as the regulatory environment permits. Good. Beauty and grooming products. Playboy relaunched its fragrance line, design perfumes, cosmetics, skincare, grooming, right? Again, fits with the ecosystem. Good. Keep expanding. Further investor details. Now we are having, yeah, definitely, let's wait with the financials, right? It's for me that's always the last part, and I might look into the valuations with you maybe with a little bit later. Uh, but I would like to actually go through one more presentation, and that's from June 26th, and it was the acquisition of Honey Birdette. Uh, Again, new member into this whole ecosystem. They acquired the basically a lingerie brand, disruptive luxury lingerie and lifestyle brand created for women by women. Um, Products inspire confidence and empowerment. Okay, cool. Built upon a high growth direct to consumer omnichannel model, right? So here it just fits into this ecosystem with Lovers and Yandy. So this is just another piece of the puzzle, cross pollination, cross selling. Uh, yeah, as long as they were paying a good price for those, right? Because this may be sometimes a tricky with mergers and acquisitions, right? If the management team is paying a fair price for the business they are acquiring, um, so of course that might potentially hurt investors. Maybe the company goes into too much debt. That's definitely something that kind of take a mental note, right? Write it down, look into it, verify. A global brand with significant US momentum. So yeah, if I remember correctly, the brand is initially from Australia, but they just kind of expanded into the US. They are having a very decent revenue growth, right? So again, they are just trying to keep on that momentum with both themselves and the acquisition. Um, oh yeah, they were in Australia, but expanded into US and UK. And who are the customers? Affluent, young, highly engaged consumers, right? And I've talked about it in my last breakdown of the Black Rifle Coffee Company, right? I definitely like when the customers are affluent and young, right? Because obviously that gives you certain protection in terms of, you know, God forbid if there is some recession or something like that. When you have when your customers are those a little bit better positioned, you can still retain your margins and everything. And if they are young, they can basically grow with you, right? So it's if you're acquiring while they are young, they will most likely stay with you to some extent. So here we can see that more than 50% of Honey Birdette consumers are under 34, majority female, and some male purchasing gifts. How they shop? They are loyal customers. Repeat purchases represent more than 60% of total net sales. I guess this kind of makes sense. If you kind of find your brand, or uh, I don't know how is your experience, but for me, I always kind of find one brand that fits for me, and if I'm satisfied with it, then I'm very likely to stick with it for a long time. I'm not like shopping around for more if we are talking like clothes or shoes, right? I've just recently yeah, that's a personal story. I'm not going to bother you with that one. But yeah, let's get back into Honey Birdette. Um, Big e-commerce traffic, lots of Instagram followers. Again, I love strong brands. Uh, yeah, good. And that expands the PLBY, the portfolio, right? So obviously you have the core Playboy, then you have Lovers, Yandy, and now Honey Birdette. We talked about those. Transaction rationale. Rapidly growing and highly profitable global brand. Net sales, year over year growth. Nice, nice. Superior design and private label product development capabilities, support key category expansion. Design and private label product. Okay, I see where they are going, right? Because that's one of those. Because Honeybirdette has the capacity to actually make the product, right? So they can maybe expand on that knowledge, make some of those products directly branded as Playboy, right? So they can use it and kind of also see how the different brands are performing, maybe switch a little bit between them, and again just kind of basically similar business, and now there is only one management team cutting on some of the operating expenses, hopefully, right, and creating this synergy of different businesses. um, yeah, exactly. Exactly as I was anticipating, leveraging shared infrastructure to target different consumer segment. Expand e-commerce footprint globally. Yeah, cool. Transaction overview. So they've purchased this business for 333 million from cash that was on the balance sheet. So I assume from kind of the IPO or maybe from some debt, and they also acquired partly with stock, so 2.2 million share. And transaction already, as we are watching this video, it's already closed. Um, yeah, direct customers. Yeah, appendix. So that was the acquisition of Honey Birdette, and I the most recent development, if I can show you, if you give me, because the last thing they basically developed, which fits into this whole story and is big on the that part, is the development of its platform. Uh, Platform called Centerfold, which is basically supposed to be, let's say, competitor for OnlyFans, right? Um, so here is one of the recent articles that basically PLBY Group has formalized a deal to purchase content platform Dream for 30 million in order to accelerate the launch of its new platform Centerfold. So as of recording of this video, the Centerfold is already launched. So basically what they are trying is to steal OnlyFans' launch and steal some of the creators there, which in the long term that could be again one of the big drivers of revenue. Um, the new platform, similar to that of OnlyFans, will allow content creators to interact directly with fans and presumably paid subscribers, correct, of their page. The Dream infrastructure will serve as a technological backbone of Centerfold. Yes, so again, it's already launched. There are now creators. They kind of chosen a relatively, I would say, a soft launch. It's promoted through some of those key influencers. They've hired a Cardi B as their like a creative director, kind of the face of the Centerfold, uh, and this is why I'm relatively bullish on the management team, right? Because they had this idea. And it was supposed to happen somewhere in 2022, right? This year, in the middle of year, that was kind of the estimated timeline for this whole Centerfold as kind of the creator-led platform. But they just pushed it way, way into the way faster than initially thought, uh, through this acquisition of the Dream. So now, as of recording January 2022, the Centerfold is already kind of a soft launched, and basically by the words of the Ben Kohn, he said, "Our new creator-led service, Centerfold, will build upon Playboy's long history, providing leading voices with a safe platform for creative expression. Centerfold will serve as the home for the world's top creators to interact directly with their fans and to expand their communities and commerce businesses." Um, to Japan and the mission. Tell us what it's called. Kohn added in his interview, "We've been a free expression platform for 70 plus years for some of the biggest talent in the world, and this is next generation of it. We are looking to not only provide a great platform for talent to work with us, but to then leverage that into much larger digital partnership offerings as we move into 2022. Um, so here you can see kind of Ben announcing some of it, and Jesus, so many ads. Um, and yeah, so basically that's kind of where the PLBY group is at the moment. And just to kind of bring you a little bit summary, right? Because now we've obviously spent almost an hour together. What's the what's PLBI doing from there? Because I've looked a little deeper into some of those stuff I talked about, and I did some of the valuations models. And the tricky part, obviously, here is that there are so many wild cards, which, in my opinion, it's of course how well will do the three businesses they acquired, right? Yandy, Lovers, and Honey Birdette. What will be their combined revenue growth? That's one of the key assumptions in the valuation model. Secondly, it's the licensing part, right? Because again, they are now getting between 2 to 3% of from the licensing. Imagine if they can renegotiate those deals and suddenly get maybe 7%. Let's say that would basically mean if they renegotiated the deals, like this during a year or whatever, it means suddenly doubling the revenue from all those licensing, which again could be a huge bump, but again prone to maybe not possible of executing that. And third is that obviously Centerfold as a platform where they are able to kind of leverage it also for people on the platform that uh, obviously one of the revenue streams would be the subscription or interaction with the creators there, and capture obviously part of that revenue. But then they can also obviously promote their products there, and the creators can promote the products. I mean, it looks like it's very nice a flywheel of components that can work very well together. But again, like these three are big wild cards with big execution risk, right? Because again, kind of if I will maybe later show you the valuation model a little bit, if we go deeper into the financials, which obviously is usually the more boring part, but important nonetheless, we can see that you know if none of those are providing at least a decent result, the we might very well say that the stock is significantly overvalued even at these levels when it was basically depressed throughout 2021. um, but maybe let me um, go into the stock. Right, because here we are at the moment, right? 24, 1 billion market cap, and it almost seems, like Ben is definitely trying to shoot somewhere to kind of revive and revitalize the empire, and seems like he has this long-term vision to definitely take this somewhere, dare I say, to 10 billion market cap over the. Uh, hmm. This is obviously tricky, but I mean, at least at least as a plan, he's definitely, from my point of view, seems like he's having somewhere around 10 billions in mind uh, before the end of the decade. But of course, again, it's about execution. The the plans, the plan is in motion, um, and I think this is definitely something that could be interesting to add to portfolio for people that are uh, maybe as a little bit of a speculative play. I wouldn't uh, obviously I'm having many different positions that I'm interested in, and this one definitely intrigues me. uh, Again, not sure about the current valuation, and it's definitely something which has a big variance compared on those factors. But I think this is a good time to kind of leave it for today with this like general overview and getting up to speed where PLBY is, and maybe revisit it in some of the later sessions, and just look more deeper into the finances and try to do some valuations. I think that could be nice, and it would be the decision making point. So yeah, let's stay in touch. uh, if you've managed to survive my rambling for an hour, then you have definitely my respect, right? And if you are interested in learning more about PLBY or any other companies, then the YouTube usual: like, subscribe, tell your neighbors. And if you're a serious investor and wants to become a part of something bigger, then definitely consider applying for Financial Fortress, right? Our big network of dedicated individuals who are trying to find some of those amazing companies and have a high level discussion, learn how to do those more advanced stuff, not only on the qualitative side but also on the quantitative, right? Be able to work with the numbers and make the estimation, because that can often make or break your investment if you are kind of entering at a good level. And thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned, we are definitely going to do more of those, and take care.